Hi, my name is Ashley and I'm an upcoming sophomore at the Rhode Island School of Design, and I'm going to be majoring in industrial design, and I'm really excited to go back. Today I'm going to be showing you my high school art portfolio that got me into RISD, as well as a few other art schools. To start, I applied to RISD, Pratt, Parsons, MICA, CMU, SVA, Ringling, SAIC, SCAD, Northeastern, and NYU. It's a lot. I was accepted to every school I got into except for CMU, Northeastern, and NYU because I didn't really try too hard, like GPA-wise. If you want, you can skip ahead to anywhere you want in the video. I'm gonna put timestamps in the description, but right now I'm gonna get started. So, first of all, my GPA. It was really bad freshman year, even worse sophomore year because I got really sick and I missed a lot of school. And then junior year is when I got like all A's. Like I tried really hard. And my GPA ended up being like 3.65, 3.7. It's like average. I guess it's good for art school, I guess, but not the best for like other academic schools. As for my test scores, I got a 1410 on the SAT, 700 on English, and 710 on math. That was the first time I took it. The second time I took it, I got a 1350, which was lower than my first score, so I just stopped taking the test. RISD was my top choice school, and I read that the average for RISD students' SAT scores was a 1350, so I was just aiming for a 1350, and the first time I took the test, I got 1410, so I was fine. I took the test a second time just to see if I could get any higher, but I didn't because I think like subconsciously I just stopped trying. For AP tests, I only took AP art history tests. I got a 4, and if you get 4 or above on any approved AP test, then you can get credit to transfer into RISD, so you don't have to take that class in college. And I got 3 credits, so one of my art history classes is like taken care of. For extracurriculars, I did a lot. Since freshman year, I was in marching band, and in junior year, I had a leadership position. I was the flute section leader, but then senior year, I quit because that's when I started my portfolio. I was also in choir for 4 years. I was in musical for 2 years. And for several years since middle school, I went to this volunteer program. I joined first as an orchestra member, playing the flute, but I later switched to the choir portion, and they would perform for nursery homes like 2 or 3 times a year. And at church, I was a retreat leader for 1 year. I was also co-president of the Korean club at school with my friend. And before that, I was the secretary or treasurer of Korean club. It was one of those. So yeah, I had in total 4 leadership positions, and I had a bunch of other extracurriculars, which I think put me ahead of some other people I was competing against to get into RISD. A huge thing that I did before getting accepted and before finishing my portfolio actually was that I went to National Portfolio Day. And every year there's something called National Portfolio Day where people from all over the US they come to a certain place. There are different designated areas for National Portfolio Day all over the country. The one closest to me was at FIT in New York. It's basically where you can stand online and bring your portfolio to show it to representatives from different art schools. And I went to obviously all the schools I was interested in. Like I went to RISD first because it was my first choice, and it's either alumni or the people that actually work at the college that review your portfolio and tell you what they think, what they like, what they don't like, what they think you should do with your portfolio, or what direction you should go. And I think it was a really good experience for me. National Portfolio Day told me what schools liked about my portfolio and what they didn't. I followed the advice of a lot of what the schools told me, especially the schools that I was interested in getting accepted to. And so yeah, I ended up getting accepted to the ones that I cared about. For awards, I entered into a lot of those high school art competitions. I won a bunch of awards from the Scholastic Art and Writing competition. The highest award I got from there was the National Silver Medal, and then all my other stuff was like gold medal at the regional level. I also got second place in the New Jersey Duck Stamp competition, and I got an award in the Korea Times art competition, and I also got a local scholarship called the Marjorie Dodson Scholarship, where I won a few $1,000s to go into my tuition. Also, I wasn't interested really in doing art at all, not even just as a career, but just in general. I thought it was boring, and then I tried it out beginning of junior year, and I ended up liking it. So it was a very rushed portfolio and a rushed decision. It was particularly hard for me because I never really took art that seriously before, so I didn't have the technical skills to do my portfolio, and I had to try a lot harder than other people. But the thing about artistic technique is that it can be learned, and hard work shows in your artwork, so it worked out well. So for my first piece, it's just a few figure drawings I did. They were all 18 by 24. I just put 3 of them together on Photoshop. The medium was charcoal and paper. I didn't really have access to like live models in my area, so I had to use this YouTube channel called Croquis Cafe, which I think they closed down now because of like nudity laws or something like that, but they have a website, I'm pretty sure. So I didn't think I would like figure drawing because I had like no technical skill when I did these, but figure drawing ended up being so fun to me, and it was the part of my portfolio that I would look forward to. I definitely got better at figure drawing at RISD, but back then it was still really fun, and I think the figure drawings I did were like, they weren't bad. I do like some of them, but the other ones I just made people look chunky and weird, but it's okay. For the second piece in my portfolio, which I'm not going to show, is some entries from my sketchbook, which I kind of did last minute to fulfill the last space in my portfolio. And I did it because I heard that colleges really like to see your process and how you think things through, and they really like to see something that's personal to you. So I included sketchbook pages. And the next one is a figure drawing as well. It's 18 by 24, charcoal and paper. And these are really bad, and I have no idea what was going through my mind when I decided to include it in my portfolio. This next one, I called it Be There or Be Square. I cut up a foam board, and its dimensions are 18 by 20 by 13 inches. And it's basically just this 3D structure made out of like cubes, and it's very geometric. And I applied as an ID major, so I really wanted to do something 3D. I think it turned out pretty okay. It could have been better, but I didn't have any idea what I was doing at the time, so. Okay, and this next one is a collage called Citylife. I used cardboard, acrylic paint, charcoal, magazine pages, and newspaper, and it's 12.5 by 16 inches. I had a really hard time with this one because it was one of the last pieces I made in my portfolio, and I just was not feeling it. I still don't really like it, and I think the pressure of applying to art school and the pressure of the deadline approaching so fast, it just got to me, especially in this piece, and I feel like you can see the panic and like the depression I was in. And also, like in general, I always had a hard time kind of going outside of the box, and especially with collages, because collages are always like spontaneous and you do what looks right. If you don't like it, you cover it. But for me, when I was doing this, I was in the mindset of like, it has to be perfect as soon as I put it on. And being at RISD, especially in my second semester design class, I learned how to kind of like get out of that funk and that mindset. My next piece is called Beneath the Wheel. It's charcoal and pastel pencil on paper, and it's 20 by 25 inches. I really like this one. It's a still life, and it was one of the first pieces I did. I worked really, really hard on it, and it was one of my first pieces, and like I said, I have no technical skills, So I kind of used this piece to like train myself. I just really like how it turned out. I learned a lot about shading and perspective and like 3D shapes and colors and lighting, stuff like that. I think it was fun. It was pretty fun to do. This next piece is called Daydream. It's 18 by 24 and it's watercolor. This piece is about me falling asleep at my desk, daydreaming about the things that I want to do or what I could have done. My art teacher like told me to put a tree on the desk and I don't know why. And I put like a lot of writing on the tree and it looks symbolic, but it's actually just a McDonald's order. But you can't tell, which is why I look at this piece and it makes me smile, because it's like just me and I guess a few other people that know that my McDonald's order is on that tree, and everyone else thinks it's like inspirational quotes. This next piece is called Human Atlas. I named it this because Atlas in Greek mythology was, I guess, condemned to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, and that's really what it felt like for me when I was doing my portfolio, so I made this piece. And yeah, I really did try to do a headstand, and I modeled and I had someone take a picture of me, and it turned out really bad but so funny. And so I painted that, and it was, I guess, combining my internal chaos with my external stress factors, and it's like you can see that I'm quite literally falling apart and everything's falling on top of me and I'm like crumbling from all the weight. You're gonna see that I do a lot of self-portraits in my portfolio, and this is one of them, and it was pretty fun to do. And one little thing that I want to say about this piece is that the Adidas shoes on the bottom left of this painting, I spent so much time doing the detail on that, and it turned out so like good in my eyes, and I was so proud of it, and I'm still pretty proud of it. And through this piece I realized that I really liked painting in like fine details. Okay, this next piece is called Just the Tip of the Iceberg, and it's the one that won national medal in the Scholastic competition. It's charcoal and pastel on paper, and the size is 20 by 25. I named it Just the Tip of the Iceberg because that saying, just the tip of the iceberg, means that it's only a glimpse of what's actually going on, because if you look at the picture of an iceberg from the side, the tip is like this big, and then the rest of the iceberg underwater is like this big. And it's me curled up in my messy room, and I'm surrounded by a bunch of papers and clothes and homework, and I'm kind of melting into my room. Now that I look at it, it's really depressing. My portfolio is very chaotic. Okay, this next piece is called Kitchen Supplies. It's basically just gouache and watercolor on a canvas, and it's a still life of these metal kitchen supplies, and it's 18 by 24 inches, and in real life, it looks good, but when photographed, the colors just don't photograph well, and it made me so sad because the people reviewing my portfolio at the schools that I would apply to will never see how it actually looks in real life, and it made me realize the importance of photographing your artwork and keeping that in mind when you're doing something that you know is going to be photographed. Okay, this next piece is called Happy Birthday. It's watercolor, acrylic, charcoal, and gesso on canvas, and to get the texture, I crushed up charcoal and then I spread it all over the canvas, and then I put a really thick layer of gesso all over it and then waited for it to dry, and then I started painting. I made this piece because on my 18th birthday, it was just a really bad day. Like, even if it wasn't my birthday, it probably would have been one of the worst days I've had that entire year, and my birthday's in October, so it's like late in the year. So I came home and I cried, and then it just so happened that on that day my family wasn't home, and then when my family did came home, I thought like they wouldn't bring me anything, or they would kind of just act like it was a normal day, but then they brought home cake, and then there are these pictures because like I couldn't stop crying when my family like lit the candles on the cake because I was just so touched. So yeah, it was a good end to a really sad day. This piece is called Off the Grid, and it's acrylic on canvas. It's 20 by 24 inches, and this one I started kind of differently than the others. The other ones I always start with a sketch or with an idea in mind, but this one I started by just globbing on a bunch of paint in color combinations that I liked and shapes that I liked, and I had no particular direction in which I wanted to go with it. And then after I finished globbing on all that stuff, I looked for shapes that looked familiar to me, and I just painted whatever I saw. And something I saw was a face, and then like a sphere and a grid, tree, stuff like that. It just all became this very abstract, like a psychedelic piece, and I like the way it came out. Funny thing though, at National Portfolio Day, the MICA representative told me to fully just take it out of my portfolio because it was so bad, and she said it had no technical skill, no sense of lighting or anything, and it just didn't make any sense. She hated it, and I was like, oh, okay. And then when I got into MICA, I got a handwritten letter from someone else, not her, saying that that piece was her favorite. So just goes to show, art is so subjective. It was really funny to read that letter. This piece is called Nooks Crannies, and it's acrylic on canvas, and it's really big. It was like 24 by 30. It's the inside of a car door, I believe, but I painted it with like rainbow colors, and the holes just seemed really empty, so someone told me that I should fill them with clouds, and I did. And I kind of painted this one to show that I can paint 3D things and that I know how things work. This piece is called Out of the Woods. It's pastel on paper, and it's 20 by 25. It's a deer kind of running out of a slab of wood, and it's like fading into each other. I don't know where I got the idea, but I think it turned out really cool, and I really like working with pastel pencil, so this piece was really fun for me to do, and the different textures was fun to combine as well. Okay, this piece is called Quiet Night, and it's 20 by 22, and it's pastel pencil on foam board, and I used a black foam board because it was a night scene, and then I thought it would be cooler to create this like ambient light scene on an already black foam board, so I don't have to paint the entire background in really dark colors. I can kind of just place light colors onto it, and I think it turned out really well. It's a picture of a night street market, and I had a lot of fun with the lighting and drawing things in the background. I really like this piece. This piece is called Self-Reflection. It's 30 by 20, and it's watercolor, charcoal, acrylic, foam board, and paper. It started off as just a diamond and then prisms, and then it was a diamond and then my face and prisms, and then eventually I cut up all the diamonds and then put them onto this foam board, and then I put my face in between them, and then I painted a landscape of a picture I took in Korea in a royal garden. I don't think this piece is very cohesive, and I just don't really like it. I think the shape of it in general is cool, but the subject matter, I don't really think it matches, and I definitely would have done this a lot differently now. This piece is another still life I did, and it's charcoal, pastel, and tissue paper on paper, and it's 20 by 25 inches. This was also one of the pieces that I did really close to the deadline, so I was under a lot of stress, and I just hated doing this because I was so ready to be done with my portfolio, and I had a hard time doing it because I was mentally exhausted. And like I said before, you can definitely tell in this piece that I was exhausted and that I wasn't in the mood. This is also one of the more boring pieces I did because it's just a simple still life with the classic apple, vases, tablecloth, and whatnot. This next piece is called Nosedive. It's acrylic on canvas, and it's 18 by 24 inches. I had a lot of fun painting this one because it was just one of those freely painted still lives, and it had a lot of wires connecting everything. It was fun to just like feel the movement in the piece, I guess, with the paintbrush. This next piece is called Scarboro. It's pastel on paper, and it's 20 by 23 inches. This also was a piece that I did very close to the deadline for my portfolio, and I had a lot of fun doing it because the water was really difficult at first, but then I started doing it in a really abstract way with a bunch of colors, and I really enjoyed painting the reflection in the water and the boats themselves because I like painting structured things too. I really like how this piece turned out, and I had a lot of fun doing it, and I would definitely do something like this again if for some reason I'm required to do anything in pastel pencil. This next piece is cardboard, acrylic, charcoal, ink, and pastel, and it's 42 by 49 by 13 inches. Basically, it was as tall as me, and it was a giant box that I glued a bunch of other boxes on, and like paper that I made into boxes, and I painted on all of that, and I drew on it, and I spent a lot of time on this, and it's me trying to break out of the box. I had a hard time with some of the aspects of this piece, and it definitely could have been a little better looking back at it now, but I think for someone with no technical skill, it was pretty impressive. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about my home test. So the home test that year for RISD was to choose one of 3 words, and for me it was either verify, error, or forge, and I chose forge. I focused on the definition of forge, and I thought it was really interesting that one word could have opposite meanings, because forge could either mean to create, like forge metal or something like that, or it could mean copy, like forge a signature. So I did a self-portrait of me in my sophomore year when I was really sick, because I got this really bad like infection on my face, and I had a really hard time with it, with like health issues and confidence, and like I said, my GPA went down, so it was a really just bad experience for me. And I painted it on a wood board and then framed it with foam board, and then I made like texture holes in the foam board around it. I wanted to like commemorate that time in my life and say with this piece, like, what are you looking at? There's nothing to see, and to just show like I've moved on. And that ties into the next piece, the second piece I did for the home test, and I called this Masquerade, and it's plaster, wood board, mirror, foam board, and acrylic. And I paper mache'd my face 3 times. My brother helped me paper mache it. I put them all next to each other on wood boards, and then I put mirrors so it looked like there were infinite masks, and it was kind of like someone looking at you from all angles, and kind of like you can't escape. It was very deep. So for the home test assignment, I'm going to read a little bit of the mini essay that I wrote and submitted with it. So I said, when the RISD prompt came out, the first thing I did was write down every definition for the 3 words in my sketchbook. I ended up choosing forge. I found it so interesting that one word was represented by 2 practically opposite meanings, to create and to copy. For my first piece, I chose to paint a self-portrait of myself from a few years ago. In my sophomore year of high school, blah blah blah, number of effects on me. In my sophomore year of high school, blah blah blah, my skin, my confidence was at an all-time low. To this day, I still have remnants of that rash on my face, but I learned to accept it. I painted myself to look both frail and daring at the same time, and I put myself into a position that's saying to the viewer, "What do you think you're looking at?" which inspired the title of the piece. I wanted to show that although the experience will always be a part of me, I've come to terms with it, and I am now able to create my own path and forge the way others think of me. My second piece is called Masquerade. After painting the first piece, I wanted to delve a little deeper into my life. I realized that every day I essentially forge different identities based on who I'm with or who I want to portray myself as. So I molded my face and created masks. I made the masks look the same because I wanted to show that although I have multiple aspects to my personality, they are all identical on the outside. They are copies of each other. Furthermore, I included mirrors to show that the infinite number of different identities I have, whether it be Korean, American, the girl who draws, or the choir girl, are all under the same mask, and I see all of those parts of me in my reflection. While I do change who I am and how I act like based on who I'm with, all these personalities define me. And then RISD wants you to go further and tell them about where you would go next with these 2 pieces. So I said that for my next steps, I would like to expand on and combine the 2 ideas I already did. And I said, the main point I'm making with the 2 pieces I submitted is that nothing was my decision, and that I want to forge my own identity and my own path and break free from the circumstances that are and were holding me back. This time, instead of being mostly conceptual though, I said that I wanted to go the literal route and actually forge metal and make kind of like an armor for myself and like a sense of protection, while also reflecting the identity that I wish to have. I would essentially be copying my old pieces and forging something new out of them. The identity that I have now under the mask would still remain. What I want to be reflected on my mask is more of an identity of choice rather than circumstance. So yeah, I was really proud of my home test and the masks and the self-portrait, and I think my home test was a big part of what got me into RISD. And when I submitted my portfolio, I honestly hated it. I thought it was so messy and incohesive and bad, and I thought maybe I was just like too hard on myself at the time, but then after going through foundation year, I hate my portfolio even more. Pieces that I hated before, I hate more now, but the pieces that I liked, I also appreciate them more now, because now I kind of learned more what is interesting to do and see, and I do have some strong pieces in my portfolio. So overall, I think I did have a good portfolio, but if I could redo it now, I would. And I would do a lot of things differently. And I'm really thankful that I did get into RISD because it was my dream school, and I had a really good time in my first year at RISD too. So anyway, thank you for watching my portfolio video. Let me know what you think. And please like and subscribe. I might start vlogging. I'm not sure. I might. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. Stay safe. And maybe I'll see you in the future.